Hello, America. Hello, Americans. No, I was in the World Trade. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers shortly before the attack. Noticed things leading up to it and since the attack, and in the context, and the night before, that are connected to all kind of crazy things since, including Connecticut Interbrand switching names and attaching me to fake and other people that were in the context to fake conversations with themselves completely, fake locations with themselves completely, fake conversations with others, sequence shifting, switching names, touching. I caught them with a principal child abuser before he got caught off campus. It was recorded, and I don't know the guys at the family. I don't even know their name at the corner of Knott Street, the ones associated with the Spada families. There's a Spada family and a Della Fera family. Some of the people that sought me out to make fake exceptions of knowing me. And then they have all the exceptions where they have the drama of their relationships. They have probate courts with their families. And they have they have New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, and New Haven District Court. Had people involved with West Hartford locations, with Weathersfield interbranch locations through time. One of the ways I was able to notice this, so it's also answers how it comes with all these answers, others revelations, how you guys blamed on other things, others ourselves. Things like the breaching method, the human fact, human nature breaching method that was in place here against every single person through everyone's self. So everyone could be measured and maintained from abroad as they were had been. And nature is showing us not only our difference, every country that has a native population is only increasing value in demonstration of we lost a hyper native, individual grouped in together. So they're preventing us from using people's names because interbranch switches. See, they have roles with all kinds of there are all kinds of people in all sides of civil and of criminal cases, all sides, the victims and the victims' advocates involved with it in the military. A whole bunch of people with Hartford Hospital through since I was a kid, and we're attaching other kids and to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake ties to themselves, and with the news media at the same time, falsifying police reports. They put a charge on police reports, and then they put no writing. They switched the names because they never had an identity individually grouped in together that wasn't criminally foreign influenced. Each of the campuses I went to, there were recorded from off the campuses roles. This is former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson of the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. Co-defendants of his, such as a Thaddeus Grabowski, a Dominic Lapriata, and a John LeConch, had roles with unions, other unions too, and their family members, and mayor's kids, lady that works for a family of mayors through time. Ages, nature, other natures of politicians, their family members, where they go. All this is used remotely. So, and I never had a word of conversation with a Chet Casper in my life. I never had. Um, he's one of the ones involved with nonverbal confirmations, tied to former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, involved with people next to the Fox Connecticut News, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that attack, and since, also as people like people with the name Mendez. There are police families with the name Mendez. They have roles with fabricating police reports and they're touching little kids into fake audio and video transcripts and databases. This is one of the reasons that other things, others ourselves, stayed blamed for things like slavery, where and how we had obligations to put science with passion and emotions proper too. Because if you're lying about with when about someone else's emotions or your own, it's discernible if you're leaving out the smallest finite detail. In other words, otherwise, then you leave out emotions and passions. This breaching method showed everyone to interpret the law wrong and to take part in this with self-value use slash s uses of the breaching method, where we are syntactically manifest. We guys defend and takes on American history that are tactical ulterior, that are communications tactical ulterior than our founders asked to have communicated for themselves. Our founders who had to counter extort quickly 13 positions and people to force them then to to have no chance but to beg for help because the crazy slavery, trade, torture laws against everyone sickly distinctly too, while measured and maintained. No one, everyone was increasingly losing the sophistication of having sciences not criminally foreign influenced, and that not self value from off those locations, but it stayed increasingly better than perfectly. Everyone would stay self valued roles with that too. Because in exploitation of where and how identity works, therefore names. So the descriptions I have in the videos and the descriptions people have, lawyers are also been planting evidences from fake motivations. He's also aware of how criminal foreign influences have been left out as one of the answers slash S will cause slavery. As one of the answers will cause, who only only someone both tactically delusions raw and with criminally foreign influence factory nature quality aspects in nature itself as criminal insidious nature could defend with passions and emotions that they believe that New York City is free. The suburbs were designed before our founders were born, with slavery entrenched north and south. And I didn't even know that about Weathersfield history when I was young, but I knew it other ways. And what happens is this employed the kids and the adults of overt criminal enterprises, of private criminal enterprises, of criminal insidiousness to the logic and the nature of the logic of people A through Z, measured and maintained through our own, through other motivations, nature, needs, interests, too, not used remotely, too. But breaching method measures and maintains other things, others, ourselves, blamed for 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 what it caused. The human fact treatment nature, torture slash extortion slash slavery method simultaneously. In a method worse than war crimes against every single person. This stole our species volume science's hypernative system to know the difference between causing positive and negatives. I mean, positives that are criminal insidiousness natures are positive or not, as a means to check, which are really evolution's fruits and gifts, or just the criminal insidious nature of positive. So you have a whole lot of passions and emotions playing with the formal identity of the ground locations. So the communications locations, they have roles with a whole bunch of different countries on and off the campuses. And they have methods of recording things out of sequence. Even then when they record things and they call things, oh, that's crime. And they don't report everything they record too, because they're faking it too. They're replacing more and more what's actually recorded. So they want to go by what's said and leave out what came first. The value of that. People know that even complete strangers say things and pretend when they know us sometimes, and including online. There's a Joshua Julian, who's one of the ones involved with the intelligence community, where and how they have been used remotely, criminally for an influence, roles with names and instances, descriptions on and off all the campuses I went to, including a fake exception near a Charles Wright, involved with a Mr. Neville. And the only time I ever approached him and he ever approached me personally, I asked him about a poem. He never gave back to me. But it was a good poem. It was like old school, but in other words. And then he put me in a summer school class. He had judge, prosecutors, judges, intelligence community, interbranch families, met for a whole bunch of people tied to a former mayor Gold, and the name Casper. People from Hartford Hospital recorded fast, demonstrated, confirmed. A Casper is one of the ones involved. I don't know his name, but there's a person involved. He interrupted my conversation with the only doctor I tried to communicate with at Hartford Hospital, a black doctor. Now this is also one of the kids with some KKK themed, black themed, and Confederate flag themed military police forms, people associated with prisons, on off the state corrections offices. Whole bunch of people tied to a Lance Cuddy and his family. He's got other brothers too. I don't know. I just know his name because it was confessed to me years ago by someone in my sixth grade class who has a whole bunch of ties, roles with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, people with the name Ian, and that live near the name Ian, and their football coaches. Something to do with the coaches of football and a John Maiano and his roles with Newington locations and Rocky Hill locations and Central Connecticut State University with prosecutors and people associated with prosecutors and various police departments that have roles with O'Brien, with Cololo, wire crime methods, fake ties, fake nature of ties to me. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by people at Trinity College involved with Eric, Joshua Stryker too. He's one of the non-verbally recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, people switching names, preventing writing where and how they replace what's actually recorded, audio and video. These are people when I was a kid. They have a whole bunch of people on and off all along Route 3 who have roles with the New Britain Avenues, intercities, and how there are two parallel to themselves on Hartford. One of the Hartford courts has a girlfriend tied to a Eric Burgess. He's one of my sources, and he's associated with a guy who said he's the son. They said he was the son of a dean judge, a dean of Central Connecticut State University. Now this is also with Dean Alford at Trinity College, involved also with names off the people next to involved with the sides of the campuses. Since I was a kid, they have roles with the intelligence community at Hartford and next to Trinity College and the other kids' campuses. The Spotter family also has that there. So these are people involved with psychiatry, and the police forms, and military and fire families, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. They all run in high life progressions with all kind of little tricks and databases. There is an aside syndrome. These people, even on Facebook, they have a Joshua Julian involved with people involved with the war. He doesn't know this. I don't know if he knows it, but there's the witness protection program involved with this in the corner of Griswold Street and Carriage Hill Drive and Fairlane Drive, and it's involved with a whole bunch of confessions tied to the people on off Trinity College who got involved with untimely deaths. They also got involved with the name Scalora, who's involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. People I don't know at all. People that pretended little illusions from backgrounds so they can pretend I'm lying if I say I don't know them. And there's people I don't know at all, like the Joshua Julian. He might have been in the background of our conversation with anything. One time in Old Weathersfield, they tried to set me up with a cop, something to do with Daryl Chandler and Weathersfield Police and Rocky Hill locations associated with Rob Rodriguez. And also I have them on Facebook because they the investigators and their campuses, and everyone around everyone. They've been criminally foreign influence differentially but perfectly increasingly. Kept needing with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people through Z to self value the same logic, illness, variables, and constants, constantly increasingly other things, others, ourselves are blamed rather than the breaching method for why and for how our founders didn't have free speech and had to pretend other like everyone else because that was the law. Psychopaths. So we still have this. The WFSB attached me. Then same time WTNH they attached me to fake emails. And then Fox Connecticut News, they're involved with these Mendes police, with child defenders, people that have programs with the schools. They're keeping these kids criminally foreign influenced rules with facts, predicate acts, methods into databases. Then they're needing to pretend other motivations anymore. Why they know people's names, why they're pretending passions and emotions. They sequence shifts with this. So the first year there's a so there are people on Church Street in Weathersfield. I don't know. And there's a Heather Hansen who's involved with a John DeMorrow and a Joe DeMorrow and people that live near them on Valley Crest and off of that. Through time involved a whole bunch of people with Middletown locations. Middletown locations, a whole bunch of people involved with somebody Bajerio and Phil Clow. I never seen them in New Britain. I only know that for somebody Bajero and a Phil Clow may have people try to take pictures. They have roles with all sides of criminal and of civil cases, and with victims and victims advocates and people in the hallway of the courts. As people are, there were also roles further with more child offenders that and then and now when they were on the registry. There's a Bob Chase who confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed a Phil Color was one of the guys involved with him. He was supposed to allow me to read a falsified police report where they made falsified, they charged me with harassment and fabricated and changed and hid things and changed the medium too. Was they left messages on an answer machine and, told other. And years ago, I don't know what the person's name has something to do with also one of the other Spotted sisters. And I never met the Spotted brother. And I don't know the other one. One of them is in Newington too, next to Dearborn Street in Newington. Has something to do with people involved with predicate acts on campuses, semi on roles on campuses, semi off from behind people's backs, and their roles with conversation. He said, she said, and they take pictures. They keep things going where they have all sides of. They have names on all sides of criminal of civil cases and the lawyers on all sides, and victims and victims advocates. Roles with the same federal evidence as crimes and tactical delusions. How come we never had addressed the delusions involved with the identity experts and the logic experts regarding black and white, regarding what state, what people of New York really think. Don't leave it through the people who are only allowed to be heard. They have the locations where they have predicate acts with facts methods, self-value when they're kids. They use tricks from kids from other classrooms where we're in the same grade. They could call that class because they refer to that as a class too, because this breaching method showed a whole bunch of trick fact keeping natures how to pretend to be law and speak for the law, while it measured and maintained from some ancient times increasingly they could not people cannot defend themselves and afford to discern how to follow the law. The law is the identity of hyper simultaneous. For example, that has individual group difference slash S and species difference slash S. Note how humanity is the only species that's criminally foreign influence, used remotely self valuing. Even when there's real reasons good reasons to self value going to outer space, all sides with that are being used remotely. All sides speaking at the other sides of weapons, let alone bombs, let alone chemical, nuclear, biological. Everyone's out of their minds. I mean, everyone's nuts. I mean, everyone's, does haven't heard science since ancient times. Prepare our minds. Ye species body. Train! Species body longs to shadow box. Some rest. I tell it best, boxing. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. You know how they deal with grappling. Distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously. The scientists share an identity where they appear not to. That's why it's important to understand how this is about difference too. Black pupils, whites of eyes, and exception that your different color eyes. This thing is the consciousness that the other species, the birds, they have male, female birds. That's one of the differences. Group. They have age. They love, the nature. Nature has a shared identity, therefore. There is an identity of relativity. It's no theory. And it is an identity of relativity, what is especially different, especially true, distinctly from what is true. And it is the only thing that is as itself. The whole world could only even believe the whole fake things, but one person could figure it out. Any person. No, but kids from New York City have the means to discern these are unnatural systems. They're leaving out finite details. Then it's not that sophistication. That is the order of the finite. By the smallest part of your body, of any body, of anything. See that connect, grouped and together. So we see the other species' bodies too, and they answer our question while it's making them, while it's showing us the answer, because of the value of our contemplation to it. Distinctly from these filters, job wants you to keep your mind, keep your energy there. Of course they do. We left out how each country left out how they were sickly, distinctly forced to become part of their economic, regardless of their success or not. You know, we have means. So we have a whole bunch of people valuing fake things written in databases. So I did a crazy thing to try to get out of. I did a bad thing with the first time I ever went to a campus when I was a little kid. Because I planned it ahead of time to really, really try to make it so I wouldn't have to go like the regular other kid. But it didn't work. But then I was good now, and everything was all right. I never had a problem with me. I don't know what they put in databases. Anything they are spying on you, whether you're Democrat, Republican. They're preventing any individual from defending the order of the finite. And now, when an individual is a member of a party and they're using that political thing, the Constitution on the bridge can't entertain that. It has to pretend though, it has to value. So it has something to do with their roles with the locations next to the state capitol, with the Casper family, and with people from Hartford Hospital that are involved with predicate acts on my street and on Facebook, also with the Weathersfield Police Department and the Britain Superior Court made rape threats. They have passion crimes from before the rape threats too, from before the World Trade Center attack. They have it had something to do with all the people that need to pretend passion emotion because when they were kids, I never had a class with them. I never had a class with Justin Klavinskis. Never saw him around school one time, and his wife. One time, real fast. There was one quick exception, and that was right before they graduated. And it was in other words, wasn't even an exception. And they brought up the Newington, the New Britain. He's where rolls with the side of New Britain with a Chris Walters, not far down the road from him. Also, one of the ones. So these are military police families. There's a Gooseberry Hill, and they're all on corners all along Route 175 from Weathersfield to Central Connecticut State University, and on all sides of it, like Iwo Jima Boulevard or whatever. I forgot the name of that street. And there's one in the Paul Manafort Drive. This is also brought up during the election on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. They are very polarized because the breaching method has it's an identity theft, fraud, slander method against every single person, sickly distinctly. To discern it, we have to discern the sequence shifts and how they've been using that remotely self value, including where and how people want to debate about things, about how what's right about uses of the name America or other countries, or what's right if you're gonna if you're being friendly to a leader of oh leader X. He's being friendly to leader X. That person's an autocrator. Autocrator. I meant autocrat. Here. So we must train as I train to be Romulus, autocrator, the Republic science. So that's what they're doing. They're wasting our time in the campuses because a whole bunch of victims slash hyper victims had other taught for them. And then they want to debate this, that's fine. But see, the nature of debate is completely insane at the surface level. So we need to get them on paper. They can't afford that. We went through wars to counter this. They had fake sides. Not one side could counter it. We're in an identity of negative value nature progression that is self valued since semi ancient times. Extinctions are proofs of that. Proofs of it are also the people that know these things that are evidences together, trying to, take away their significance when they're pretending they believe in the integrity of the names of the other sciences. And so everyone stop blaming things on the individual names. Blame on actual things. People blame. I was trying. There was a post. Ice Cube was on a post somewhere, a YouTube short, I think. And I just happened to be in the conversation. I said about advertising. I shouldn't say because he was talking about advertising and Microsoft. You know, There was nothing against Microsoft. In fact, they have that Bill Gates. They'll attack him. They'll have people attack him. They'll have people attack our leaders. So we're in how we need to show how each individual name is being used criminally in seriousness, natures of positive and negative. In other words, there's never been a free use of Americans' name. Our founders had to be counter extorted. Marbury versus Madison and James and George Washington wanted nothing to do with slavery. And they wanted us to demonstrate that with the Constitution. That's why they said to get it unabridged. They said not to let people play tricks with facts. Use knowledge to knowledge to get over on correlation what's actually proper regarding what statute says what. You don't leave that separated from the breaching method. That measure, whatever, they have to lie about their motivations for tea parties, etc. That'd be criminal insidiousness, natures of unities, and or of independent voices or independent groups. Or they'd be measured, maintained. They'd be measured, the sensed, and hurt too. That's how sick those. That's why it was sustained. Before our founding parents were born, this breaching method had been sustained against everyone. And now it was being sustained against Native Americans and everyone at the same time, everyone through everyone, even Native Americans against Native Americans. It was watching them no longer capable, no longer, for the time and positions and things like that, taken away from them, no of defending the hypernative answers that once were known. England doesn't even remember the history of English. It is right here. Nature's identity as the as the means to to read this, to read the rules of English grammar as they really had been and are prepared, all near and all far. So they did crazy things with Facebook because they've been before Facebook was even online. They had they had roles from criminally foreign influence uses of databases. So then I went to a kindergarten class to a school for that closed a year after that. And the names next to that campus are one of the ones further then and now involved with the child abusers and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. That was right near Valley Crest. A whole bunch of people involved with the syntax. They when you see what is actually recording what they were using Facebook for, tied to what they were doing on the land. Even if they made all that up, the whole bunch of stuff and some of that real. Plus, they have roles with the facts, predicate acts, fake words with me, completely fake locations they attach me to, the news locations, fake emails. They change where I say, well, I wrote one semi-clear email because these are people also tied to the Lance Cuddy. Never had a word of conversation with my life. There's a Daryl Sullivan who's also involved with the name Sullivan with the last confession that used the name Cololo of a Weathersfield police. They have wire crime methods. Weathersfield Pizza are also involved with them with this. And they have roles with people with a whole bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University through time. I never saw a Maria Fazzino on a Weathersfield campus in my life. There was one exception. I had one class with Steven Stocka, a math class. Never had one word of conversation with him. Never took when a Paul Zano and a Ray Claw were harassing him the whole time. They were being used. I never no. He never had one word of conversation with me. A Paulzano, and I barely had anything. In other words, they were trying to get me to say because these are people planting evidences, but it's from off campuses too and foreign. These are people when I was in middle school were involved with overt criminal enterprises, plural. And this is everyone speaking through each other, but they all knew about some certain parts of it. It has so it has something to do with it. They made one instance with me of communications with me. One time they had a thing, a book. There was a guy on a piano, and I think that's the guy who was the one that I don't know if it was the guy in piano we were next to it, but I knew the one. They said which one is different, and I raised my hand, but because that's what you're supposed to do. And she kept picking on everyone, and they were pointing, and they were wrong. And then we didn't do anything. Then they would put me with headphones on, and they would do whatever. But I already was tested. I was in kindergarten, but I was 11th grade reading level or 12th grade, and there was a Harris family. I found out that was in the background as one of the ones involved with the Leahy family and medical families and judges with that. I there's also a Judge Killian and ones associated with these. You know, they've been using medical locations like Hartford Hospital has I mean, if people are yelling and things like that, put people in there. If they're fighting, sometimes they'll send them in for mental evaluation. What they do there is fabricate audio and video transcripts. Whole bunch of people untied with car dealerships and with their family members on and with people on off Hartford hospitals policing of that place and roles with unions, lawyers with it, involved with predicate acts on my street, and roles with untimely deaths, fake conversations with me, fake audio and video streams, and mail crime with them, Weathersfield police with them, lies about Facebook into records, speaking fake things into records for evidences. That's one of the tricks the judges do, where hyper evidential has them recorded roles also the courts with all sides in criminal and civil cases, and with victims advocates in their campuses. Let alone, some they hurt everyone sickly distinctly because they employed also other things others ourselves blamed for that, and then they had to hide that. They showed them that where they're used remotely, so even preemptively, actively, grouped ways, and increasingly that's like at places like Central Connecticut State University, the different cultural differences. It's manifest with their conversations and with their roles with tricks where they try to make a fake instance of then we're going to ask you about it in court. They don't ask questions legitimately. They've been using courts to fabricate audio and video transcripts with these names in all sides of those cases and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And the news media at the same time rolls with the crime scene slash S. And all that is used by the hypercrime scene method slash S. Don't forget that is increasingly causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in New York City because science reveals that science never spoke for New York City, but I was pretended with passions and emotions because we have psychopaths that were child abused. Where and how? No, you guys left out the significance of the hyper evidence of the identity of relativity. So the breaching method would measure and maintain distinctly from our own where and how people would entertain or self value. I didn't even read it. The theory of evolution in the special revolution. Nature is about showing us the existence of relativity slash hyper relativity. And like again, our other species have these things. Even the difference between black people, white survives accepts nature. How nature uses a special difference as a relativity. Nature is identity of relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. To net value positive and negative simultaneously too, because that's where we have semi-nature conjunction to its complete hypervolumes, complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. Where and how it is that identity of volume that is only increasingly valuable as the identity of forever. That is one volume as all that has ever been. It is one volume as itself, one portion of itself too. It is all that is being active here right now. While the value of what is to come is part of itself too, already here, valued now. And that's why it's important to understand prayer not as a scientific, not any other way told. All exception nature and demonstration, the same thing. Beginning of the Old Testament, for example, says all someone needs to understand is right up to here, where the people of the sciences come together. Instead, people of the sciences come together, psychopaths, pretending passions and emotions. Oh, we care about Jesus Christ's name. Oh, we care about this out of sequence. Facts with practical roles. Or nature's too. Forget about it. How to say? You may pray, vaccine. I teach a thing, but no. So, see, see, this sing along. I don't know if it's in tune.